And so the stunt coordinator cut the break, sent him, and that's the take that they used.
Wow. In today's video, we'll be hearing behind the scenes stories and secrets from someone who worked firsthand on the set of Home Alone, my mom. She had a long career as an assistant director working on some incredible movies, but it was hard to top her first job. Let's see what it was like working on one of the most famous Christmas movies of all time.
When I got called in to go interview for Home Alone, the studio that we didn't have a studio, they took an old high school that was no longer being used for school, and they made it their stages and offices, which was perfect because there's so many rooms to be offices, and you could build sound stages in the gyms and everywhere. So I walk in, you know, I'm like, what room number? Just like being back in school, I gotta find the room, and a guy rollerblades right by me. Chris Columbus on rollerblades, the director of the film.
While you're there for your interview.
While I'm there, I don't know who he is, but I see a guy go by me. I go into the AD office, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is cool." So that's how everybody got from place to place, because it was perfectly open halls with that, you know, tile high school floor. So rollerblading was the means to get from office to office.
When you're starting to get this job, like you're applying for it, or even after you get it, did you really have any idea what you're getting into, what this movie would become, like the classic, Christmas classic that it has become?
Okay, I didn't have any idea, but I don't think anybody did. So it was a really young group of filmmakers. I mean, obviously not John Hughes. He had written it, but he decided not to direct this one. So mostly, he directs a lot of his own stuff, but I think I don't know why, he decided to pass this one on. Chris Columbus was new in the business. I don't know what he did before that, but he was really young. He got, Julio Macat was the director of photography, who also had done maybe a couple of little things, but they were stunt oriented, so they thought he was a really good guy to capture the stunts and the action. So no, I don't think anybody knew. And even as we were going through it, people were like, this is good, like there's magic here, but you never really know until it hits box offices. And their goal, a lot of the production value was to keep it timeless. So they didn't want the look to be dated ever, so that it could have longevity, just hoping that it would, and it did. It was not an easy casting because John had used Macaulay in Uncle Buck for just not a big role, but saw something and kind of pushed him on Chris. And Chris was like, I don't know. Like, he's good, but I don't know. He saw a lot of people, a lot of casting. And then he was like, yeah, Mac's good, because they wanted Kevin to be, he was a little bit of a brat, but they didn't want him to be disliked, you know, and humble, and not too like, they didn't want to go extreme with, and he was a little bit quirky, a little bit different looking, but I mean, it really couldn't have worked out better.
Yes.
Did that rollerblading energy from pre-production carry over into production? Like, what was the atmosphere, what was the vibe on set compared to other jobs that you've worked on?
So good, because it absolutely carried over, and it gave me so much enthusiasm for being in the business, because it was, you know, it's a little bit stressful, obviously any production is, but it was like young, raring to go crew, you know, from the top down. So it was fun in the stunts, like it was fun, it was funny, it was a really good energy. It was probably one of my most fun sets to be on.
Just also being on a movie like that, like it seems like there's so many scenes where it's like, how can you not have fun watching like
exactly
people fall down the stairs? And
it was hard. Like there was two sides to that, right? Because the stunts were really hardcore stunts. You watch it and you think it's slapsticky and kind of cartoonish, but those were hard stunts. They fell hard. It wasn't the technology that there is now. There weren't cables. There weren't things stopping them. They kind of made it up, and they went hard. So there was always a moment where you said cut, and everybody, before you laughed, you were like, are they okay? Yeah. Are they okay? And then everybody was like, oh, that was the best. The two stuntmen for Dan and Joe Pesci were amazing. And I think their careers also got, like, they went, because they did such a good job. But they were always there, so it was kind of...
I mean, that is some of the best stunt work, like,
it's
in the
so
past,
good. I mean, that whole
50 years.
Home Alone fall is, like, epic.
Yeah, it's its own thing. It's,
it is.
Like a name of a specific fall.
Right? And it wasn't rehearsed, and it wasn't... Like, he was just supposed to fall backwards, but he just did such a good whoop, and his back went and he flipped sort of, and that was one of the ones where people were like, even the stunt coordinator was like, I just need to know he can move. Like, there's not a broken neck. The other epic major stunt was the toboggan going down the stairs, which was at the practical location. It was actually going down the stairs, out the door, right? It was going so fast, right? So they were like, we can't do this. Like, the stunt guy's like, I don't know about this. Like, we can't put him 30 miles an hour out the door.
Oh, you're trying to put Macaulay in it?
No.
Okay.
The stunt guy. They rigged it. The one thing they did rig was like a cable, and it had a brake system, but it would go so slow. So then they were like, do we speed it up? Like, so it kept, every take, it was just too slow. And so the stunt coordinator cut the brake on the last, like, just cut the brake, sent him, and that's the take that they used.
Wow. What was a tarantula on set like?
So this is a great story. Dan Stern they were supposed to use an electronic spider.
No.
Yeah, on his face, because he was like, I'm not having a deadly spider on my face, right?
No way.
So the thing is, they showed him one, they had one, but the technology was so inferior to now that it just looked ridiculous, right? Yeah. So he didn't know until that day. Like, they get on the set, they do everything. Then now when he's on the ground, they obviously don't need it till he's on the ground. And he's like, where's the mechanical spider? And I said, well, all right. So, Dan, we're going to go with the actual spider. He's like, oh, the actual spider. Did you de-poison it? And they're like, well, we can't really do that because it won't live if you do that. So he wasn't very happy about it. I think it was only one take. And also the other thing is he couldn't scream. Like, he had to yell, but he couldn't really scream and freak the tarantula out because it would bite him.
What was it like working with Macaulay? What was that experience?
It was good. It was nice. He was happy. He had fun. He worked hard. Like, his parents were pretty strict about if he had to show up and know his lines. Yeah. So, he was 9, I think 9 on that one. He was prepared. He did a good job, and he was happy. He had to leave by 10. I think the laws were 10 by then. So we didn't ever have him too late, which made, we shot his stuff and got him out. Right. Yeah, and I mean, I got to know the family because I did Home Alone and then Home Alone 2.
AKA Kiss Me Polka, Polka Twist.
This is one I really have been excited to ask about because I've heard some of your stories. A lot of this stuff I really have never heard before. This one I do know, but what was it like doing the John Candy Day?
Oh my gosh, the John Candy Day. Okay, so John Candy and John Hughes know each other, and Catherine O'Hara and John Candy go back to like Second City days, so he's kind of connected. But also, this is not a big budget film. At the time, it was pretty low budget, and they couldn't have a lot of expensive actors, so they had John Candy for one day, one acting day. That day was a 23-hour film day. 23 hours. It was the first time I was like, we earn a lot of money if we work 23 hours. We did not stop. So he has a couple scenes, if you remember. First they're at the airport and Catherine O'Hara can't get on the plane, and he's like, oh, I overheard you, And then they offer to give her a ride. So then they're in the polka band van, right, in the back of the van. And they are improvising. I mean, they're like, oh, this is funny. And they just keep going. So it was a really fun day. Yeah. John Candy was a great man. That was one of the days where you're laughing, but also you're completely exhausted. I never worked that many hours in my entire life.
The thing is, you got to hear so much improv. Like those scenes will never, no one will see them, but like you got to listen.
We got to get like what's on the cutting room floor. There's probably some great stuff because that scene is not that
23
long.
hours, it better be like.
Yeah.
Better have some good stuff.
Now, he was okay, after 6-7 weeks. And I came around, started talking again.
Oh, the aftershave I'll do.
Well, I can tell you a story about it, but I don't really know. I certainly wasn't standing on set while they're filming in a tight set like that. But I do know that they had that Chris talked to Mac and, put it on your face, scream. But it was Mac that didn't remove his hand. So, and it becomes like everybody knows that's Home Alone, right? Right. But that was all his decision. He just kept his hands there and screamed, and it just turned out to be such a great, iconic moment. A lot of people say that Macaulay really had an understanding of comedy, which, you have or you don't have, I guess.
Yeah, he's amazing in that film. I mean, for such a young age.
He does a really good job.
One of the, most touching, probably my favorite scene in the movie is, the end where Kevin's with the neighbor in the church, the Christmas music's playing. Do you remember that day?
I mean, I can tell you production things about that day.
Yeah.
It was so hot. And we had that choir. The choir kids were like fainting. I mean, they weren't physically fainting, but we had to keep airing it. And it was smoke, you know, just you fill the set with smoke.
Yeah.
It's hot. There's lights. It's late. Everybody's tired. And I remember we kept, get them water, like do
Choir
something, get
kids
them
were
fresh
coming.
air. Yeah. It was a little bit difficult.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It was really touching. And I think it took on, you know, because at the end of the movie, it wasn't originally supposed to end with Kevin looking out the window and seeing Marley reconnect with his family, and it's such a, it really makes
Beautiful.
your heart warm, and it's such a,
Well, you just brought up, that's another thing I want to touch on, like, because they end with that perfect shot, and I know some of the snow was fake at some point, I want to talk about that too, but that's real, right? Like, I mean, that's like a full-on blizzard. Like, how did that...
Yeah. So when we did snow, there was 3 kinds of snow, maybe more, but so obviously I'm not including practical snow. Sometimes there was real snow, but there was foam. So if you were doing a long shot down their street, they could foam machine. They had just trucks of foam, which would shrink and it didn't always stay, and it's not the prettiest. So if it's far away, they would foam stuff.
Got it.
We had big, huge ice machines, like snowmaking machines that they would throw ice into, and that would make snow. But when you see falling snow, potato flakes.
Potatoes.
Actual potato flakes.
Is that like through a chipper or like...
Nope, like through something that they shook.
They're just throwing...
Shaking. When Kevin's looking out that window,
That's
above him is a box with like a screen, and they're shaking potato flakes.
That's ridiculous, but it looks
Right?
great. Yeah,
I know.
me. They got me pretty good.
Yeah.
So what... I mean, that's a lot of fake snow, like...
We had a truck that was filled with the ice that literally was so heavy it broke through the street we were parked on at the house.
Oh my...
Broke through the street.
in the suburbs.
In the suburbs, it was such a heavy truck. We got there in the morning and the truck was in the cement.
That's a big locations
Right?
issue.
I know, yeah.
I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but another one of my favorite scenes, favorite shots, is when the Wet Bandits bumper goes, the bumper comes right up to Kevin's nose. And especially when I was younger, I always wondered, how did they do that safely?
So they have Macaulay standing right at the van. Here's Macaulay, here's the van. They shake the van as if it just stopped and then put it in reverse. So the whole thing is filmed in reverse.
Wow. It looks great.
Yeah.
Same thing for...
high tech, right? There's guys on either end.
Was it Kieran when he's like, they're in the beginning, the pizza, he gets the chair?
Yeah. It's
Same
a
thing.
rubber chair.
Oh.
It's a rubber chair.
So not reversed? And just
No,
rubber
it's not
chair?
reversed. It just bent. So they could
Got
just
it.
pin them with the chair and it was soft.
What were some of the like hardest, craziest scenes that you guys did during the movie?
I would say the stunts were the hardest. Like the iron dropping. So when he pulls the light, he's in the basement, right? And he pulls the light switch, but it's attached to the iron, so it comes down. They had to literally drop a camera down a thing right to Daniel
POV
Stern's
shot.
face. You're dropping a 30-pound camera to an actor's face, and you can't. How do you fake that? You can't really fake that. So things like that were hard.
Took a long.
Yeah, more safety issues to take care of. And I just thought this was funny. Dan Stern they made like rubber feet that they put over his foot. So when he was out in the snow, like after he stepped on the nail and everything, and then after he used his real feet when he stepped on the ornaments, which I was like, that was the first time I ever learned about candy glass. I was like, oh, this is so cool. It looks like glass and it all breaks and,
Yeah.
And I have some of those little micro machines somewhere.
Oh.
I'm going to find them at some point.
Well, hopefully we'll get some B. If we found them, there'll be some B-roll right here.
Yes, I kept a handful of those, and there's somewhere I'll find them.
They got those micro machines that are all over in there.
What was the best day that you had? No, that's also hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was a really good experience. I had happy days. I enjoyed it. It was a fun set. People weren't cranky. They weren't unhappy. So I think just the overall experience was good. I can't think of one specific, like, wow, this was so much fun.
What was the feeling on set the last week, the last day, like as everything was kind of coming to an end?
Yeah, I think that people were a little bit sad. Like, you're always happy. It's such an accomplishment when a job ends, when a film is done. But it was a family group. It was a good bonding experience. I think everybody really enjoyed each other. So it was definitely sad to say goodbye. I think everybody knew it was going to be magical. The combination of actors and the stunts and the comedic and the sentimental value. I think definitely it was known. But did anybody know the longevity of it? That it would actually be the Christmas movie we all watch every single year. My children, the next generation, your children will watch it. Like it. No, I don't think anybody could have predicted that kind of longevity. I think the buzz was loud, and I think definitely my friends and family were proud because it was my first like big thing that my name was on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, so. Yeah, I think there was a lot of celebration about it. It was definitely
awesome.
Something that I got accolades for, definitely.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, that's such a big movie. To be your first, like, big job is...
Yeah, it was a good feeling. Because you don't ever know, right? Even if there's big names in a movie, you never know if it's going to be big or not, and or if people are going to hear about it. So, it's to this day, when people are like, you worked on Home Alone, I feel like I'm basically an old lady, right? And people are like, you worked on Home Alone, and I still feel pride about it.
Yeah, that really is like once in a generation movie. Like,
yeah.
It's really awesome that you were at the right place, right time. Like,
definitely, yeah.
Such a cool first job.
Absolutely.
You can't beat that.
No, you cannot. You cannot.
You get some glory working on a set, but really, it's about getting the merch.
It's about the pins.